I'm Tania Gustafson, award-winning nutritionist, behavior specialist, and certified mental wellness coach on a mission to help midlife women move from barely surviving to thriving. You have been lied to. Weight gain, mood swings, hot flashes, brain fog, despite what the world and even your doctor may have told you, do not have to be your story. You are not broken. You've just never been shown how to fuel your body in a way that creates hormonal balance. Fit Woman Podcast is where we expose the lies and share all things to help women take back control of their health, hormones, weight, and mental wellness and thrive through midlife. I'm so glad you're here. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fit Woman Podcast, where we explore all things to help women fuel their bodies, ignite their metabolism, and their minds to thrive in midlife. I am Tania Gustafson, your host, and today I am excited to have a true outlier in the field of fascia, Sue Hitzmann. Sue has had over 25 years clinical and teaching experience where she translates fascia science and somatic education and nervous system regulation into accessible techniques and treatments for both the public and wellness professionals. She is a New York Times bestselling author of The Melt Method and Melt Performance, and she hosts the podcast Anatomical Gangster, I love that name, and is a leading voice in the global fascia and longevity conversation. So thanks for taking the time to be here today, Sue. I so appreciate you.
Oh, my pleasure. I mean, I love that you're also one of our fellow Melt instructors. So
yeah, I took the Melt course because when I first heard you speak, I was like, I didn't know anything about fascia. Well, I knew like this much about fascia. I knew nothing. After I listened to you, I was like, oh my gosh, I knew nothing, zero. And I thought I need to understand this more. So I took the course to understand it, so I could share with other people and let them know why you should be doing this and why fascia is important. And so I don't articulate it nearly as well as you do, obviously. So that's why you're, so can you just explain, so tell us what you do, what's your little niche, your demographic there?
Well, I'm amongst being many things, but an author, an entrepreneur, but my focus here, just like how you said, is a very fascia-focused, fascia-forward methodology to not only educate the general public, but to also bring about the conversation of fascia, because I'm a founding member of the Fascia Research Society. And so I feel like the important element of this is really bringing the science out to people so that we make it accessible and not so scientific that it becomes very elusive. I am here to clarify the information for all of us so that we can age well, feel better, live better longer.
Yeah, that's important. And it's, when things are so science-based, it is important to be able to understand, like to explain it in a layman's terms. Otherwise, people are just kind of like, they check out, right? It's like,
yeah, the nervous system's a little bit of a complicated system. And
just a little.
It's just a little, right? And when you start looking at the parts of the body, it's important that we put it back together. And that's really what fascia does. And what I try to do is to not just break down the parts for understanding, but how does it relate to my life? How does it relate to what's going on in my world? Right. And that's the bridge that I feel I offer, is to take that science and not just disseminate it down into words people can understand, but to actually create an application for them to use something, to physically do something to help this system thrive in their bodies.
Absolutely. So just for those people out there who are wondering, like, okay, what is fascia again? Like, let them know what it is. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So fascia traditionally has been called a connective tissue because it's the substance under your skin that connects everything. So that we call it connective tissue. We should call it the tissue of innerness. And in recent science, we're actually understanding that it's actually a sensory organ. It's the organ of awareness. So it's the substance in your body that not just allows you to move, it actually is the system that allows you to sense and feel. So when you're feeling things, it's fascia that's allowing that to happen. So it is a three-dimensional fluid-based architectural matrix. Primarily what it's made up of is what we call H3O2, a kind of a gluey fluid system, and collagen. And so these two substances together work to manage tension and compression. It's a force transmitter of our movement. It is a communication system. We could actually think of fascia not just as a tissue and an organ, but actually a system of stability. So not just for your muscles and bones and your posture and your macroscopic structure, but on every level, on a microscopic scale, on a nanoscopic scale. Fascia on a microscopic scale is called the extracellular matrix, and it's the substance outside of your cells that allows cell-to-cell communication to happen. It is helping your nervous system, your immune regulation. It relates to all aspects of stability, emotional, chemical, neurological, psychological. And what's perplexing is that it's the most abundant material in the entire body, and it's been the least studied. The last 30 to 50 years. It was chucked in the bucket even when I was in school to get to the good stuff. We didn't really study it. But now, because of these curious researchers and atomic force microscopy, we're looking at the microscopic scale. And so science is starting to recognize that fascia is not just a substance that helps you move, but it's actually the substance when you feel pain. It relates to your pain reactions in your pain body. And it's also inherently linked to your longevity and how you age.
Okay. So definitely something people need to start listening about, paying attention, because yeah, it's not just about, oh, it's the stuff that's connecting my bones and my joints and all the things. It's like, no, it's a lot more than that.
Who would know that we actually had to treat it? And I always say when I was in school, I mean, I grew up in the fitness industry.
Yeah, me too.
And so it's like, I never really thought of connective tissue as anything else but just an inert packing material in the body, even through school. And then suddenly when I was in pain, and my first diagnosis was plantar fasciitis, and I just remember thinking inflamed fascia. What the hell is inflamed fascia? How do you fix, why is my fascia inflamed? And how the heck do you get rid of inflammation? Like, what does that even mean? And how is that relating to my pain? And it was really kind of a mind blow for me at 28 years old to go, my God, I have all this education behind me, and I don't know anything about this substance that may actually be relating to my pain problems. And that was what veered me out of the fitness industry and into the healing arts, was pain.
Okay. Yeah, everyone, it's usually a story, right? Usually we have our own personal story for ourselves or for somebody that just sucks us in, and then we become all consumed. And so. And then, so how did you, so let everybody know what is the MELT method and how did that come to be? Because I love that little story there.
Yeah. So I was in pain. I kind of went down this rabbit hole. Lucky enough, in the late 90s, Google became a thing. I typed in fascia into the search and found 150 sites, which now there are like 150 million sites that will cite fascia, right? But at the time, there were about 150, and about 100 of them were about airplane propellers and stick wrapped in twine. Those are fascias. Or buildings, or the front faces of buildings. But the ones that were actually about the human body, I went down this rabbit hole to try to understand it for myself, and come to find there was this emerging field of neuroscience and fascial research, not only trying to answer fascia's role in pain, but fascia's role in longevity. And I became, again, somebody who very, very consumed with this community. And what I saw was that the only people who were really using this science, and most of the researchers at the time, were Rolfers. So for hands-on therapy. So now I started going and taking all these hands-on therapeutic techniques, visceral manipulation, lymph drainage, cranial sacral therapy, because each one talked about fascia in their own way. And it was, as I started learning these different techniques, my practice went from working with high performance athletes, trying to get them back out on the field faster with neuromuscular therapy, to kind of looking at this fascial system and the cranial rhythm and these subtle body energies that were living in us that hadn't been part of my learning, because I was more biomechanical, physiology, biology, right? But when I kind of quieted down and started learning these things, I started treating my clients in a slightly different way. And then when 9/11 happened, my whole practice exploded with people who had post-traumatic stress disorder. And what I learned was that even people who have emotional trauma can have physical pain. It could actually manifest in the body.
Yes, absolutely.
So as I'm working on my clients, it was literally this one lady who had chronic migraines and TMJ came to see me. I would treat her with my hands, and for a week, for her first time in decades, she didn't have a migraine. So she's like, you're like magical. And I said, yeah, but you keep coming back. So I'm not so magical. There's got to be something in your environment that's doing it. And her exact words were, if you could invent a way for me to do to myself what you do with your magic hands, I'd stay out of your office once and for all. And so I thought, I would be unemployed if that was possible, but I don't even know how that would work. So I just became kind of an experimenter, and I came up with the idea of taking PVC piping, I wrapped it in bubble wrap, I wrapped it in a yoga blanket and a yoga mat, duct taped it together, and I started to apply light touch therapeutic techniques to myself. And I decompressed my own neck. I knew I did it. I gave it to Donna. She started doing it, and she went from having to come back every week to 2 weeks to 3 weeks to 4 weeks without a migraine. She was like, I can hold it. She said, now invent a way for my husband to stop complaining about his back so he plays a better game of golf. And so then it became this like, I wonder if I could do this. So over the course of 2001 to 2004, I started to develop these techniques. There were no soft tools on the market. So then that became a part of the process, was like, how do I get somebody to help me make these tools? I'm not an engineer. I should be doing this. Like, somebody must have these things. But no. So now I'm developing tools and techniques. And I was literally, my practice exploded. I was seeing so many people. And then I just thought, gosh, I wonder if I could explain this to people in a group environment and save them time. And that's what happened in 2004. I started teaching in groups. Then all of a sudden, it was like this was a transformation in fitness. I was bridging therapy and fitness. And it became a movement. And, again, I've written 2 books. I've got thousands of instructors worldwide now. So, so what is MELT? To answer the question, it is a simple self-care technique that simulates hands-on therapeutic intervention. It really is fundamentally based on awareness to identify what this stuck stress and fascia feels like, treat it yourself using soft tools, soft rollers, soft balls, and now we have this vibration device called the fascia hydrator. And then treat your body with these tools, see if you can yield the fluid exchange, alter the way the nervous system is reacting to the body, and then reassess and see if your body relaxes more into a much more neutral state. And the profound thing for people is that from the assessment to the treatment to the reassessment, people notice change. And that's kind of the hook. That's what gets people to instill it into their daily life. Because if you can make yourself feel better for an hour in a day, and then that hour lasts for many hours in a day, and then you do it every day, it's kind of like taking an anti-inflammatory. You start feeling better longer, and you can get yourself out of a lot of the chronic issues that we run into with aging, especially with women, because we have a massively changing hormonal state, and fascia has a huge relationship to our immune regulation, our hormonal regulation, and our digestive behavior and sleep.
Wasn't that great? Okay, so before we get back into today's episode, I want to share something that I know will change your life for the better, like it did mine. If you're over 40, feeling like your body just does not respond the way it used to, your metabolism feels stuck, and your energy is not what it once was, and the scale keeps creeping up no matter how good you try and eat, you need to hear this, okay? You are not broken, and this is not your fault. Your hormones, blood sugar, and yes, even inflammation are all playing a role in what's happening with your body right now. But there is a method that actually works with your midlife physiology instead of against it, okay? So I want to invite you to watch my free training video where I break down the FIT method, how to fuel your body, ignite your metabolism, and help you thrive through midlife without the dieting, without the deprivation, or the burnout. In this video, I'll walk you through why your metabolism feels like it's stuck in airplane mode, why cutting calories and doing that extra cardio is not the answer, and how to stabilize blood sugar, reduce inflammation, and support your hormones so that you can have real sustainable results that stick. No gimmicks, no quick fixes, and definitely no diets. And once you've watched, if it resonates with you and you're ready to say, I'm worth it, because you are, go ahead, complete that questionnaire and book your consult with me to talk through your plan and set a strategy for your body and your goals. What are you waiting for? Head on over to fuelignitethrive.com or click the link in the show notes, watch the free training, book your call, and together we can make midlife the best time of your life. It's time, and you are worth it.
What is like the biggie aha for women that they need to look for?
Well, first, like superficially, wrinkles. Cellulite is often just a metabolic sign, a warning sign that your metabolism is changing. And what the body does to protect the lymphatic system is it stores fat in the superficial layers. But as those fat cells get bigger, it breaks down the collagen bindings. And now you sort of see the texture of fascia, because fascia has a texture, it kind of looks like a sponge.
Yeah.
And what more of the science is really starting to look at is the role of things like hyaluronin, which is the fluid aspects of fascia, that this is really a cellular communication substance. It's actually a force transmission element of fascia. It's not just what creates glidability, it actually creates neural signaling to the rest of the body, because you have more sensory nerves living in fascia than anywhere else. So the thing about fascia is that as we start to age, even if you don't have pain, you've noticed what I call pre-pain signals that your fascia is needing your help. So before you even have hormonal dysregulation, digestive problems, sleep problems, if you sit for long periods of time and then you get up and you kind of make sounds when you do your and your joints don't work as well when you get up as they did when you sat down, that's your fascia alerting you that the fluids are not moving. And if you think of the fluids in fascia like a river, daily living is kind of laying sediment down in the river's flow, which is why your joints start to feel tight. And so if you do what most people do when you start having joint pain, you pop a pill, which is what most people do.
Yep.
It's kind of like, you have to remember, pain is just a signal. It's a signal. That's all it is.
Absolutely.
So the way that we deal with the alarm, think about it. Your fire alarm's going off because your toaster's on fire. And what do most people do? They run over to the fire alarm and they pull the batteries out, but the toaster's still on fire.
Right.
And that's kind of how we deal with pain in the body. We pop these pills to inhibit the signal, but we don't actually understand that the body is sending us messages that it needs our help. And if you start just medicating yourself to ignore the signals or to inhibit your sense of it, that's the bigger problem that starts that catastrophic effect in the body as we age, is that our body's metabolites start to accumulate in the superficial fascia. Hormones that are unused are stored in the superficial fascia right under your skin, the tissue that you can pinch an inch of.
Okay.
And this is the big deal, is that as these metabolites accumulate in that region, that's where you also have an abundance of capillaries and immune signaling.
Okay.
The body's trying to move fluids from fascia into lymph. So if the fluids in fascia decline and that sediment starts to accumulate in your river's flow, the fluids that are supposed to be pulled from these pre-lymphatic channels, almost like a toilet drain, into the lymphatic system, get clogged.
Okay.
And now you have a slowdown of your immune system. And now you have histamine responses, bloating and weight gain, things that seem completely unrelated to how you feel when you move. You feel exhausted midday. Your mood tends to change. You either have anxiety or depression. But for as exhausted or anxious as you are in the day, at night when you finally try to wind down, you can't wind down. And now you're not sleeping through the night. And now you're getting things like hot flashes and all these other pieces. But before all of this dysfunction is happening, that we can blame aging and we can blame our hormones for, our hormones are floating through this system. So what we want to do is make sure that we have this river flowing and that the irrigation system, if you will, of the body is moving so that we can maintain our abundance, our stability, our vitality, and just our natural state of ease in the body, efficiency.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's just, and it's interesting, I think, how something that's so what we would think is unrelated actually controls so many aspects that you just labeled here, right? Like we know that the gut health is so important for the regulating of hormones and blood sugar and all those kinds of things. But then the fascia is now regulating that, it sounds like.
It's not that it's regulating, it allows regulation to occur.
So, okay.
Think of it as being the environment that this regulation occurs in. So it's kind of like you having to regulate your household. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you come into your house and you have kids and the entire house looks like you got robbed because everything is out in the open, the house is a mess, the cats haven't been fed, just everything is so, that's sort of what's going on in the body. So you tend to the superficial stuff and just clear off the countertops and like put stuff away, but you haven't done the deep cleaning. And that's kind of what's happening in our bodies is it's just accumulative stuff. It's like a layer of an onion. And so the most we ever do is just peel off a little bit of the onion. And the problem with that is low-grade inflammation, is most of us are actually living in a low-grade inflammatory state in the fascia. And when your fascia and your lymphatic system aren't dumping those metabolites or utilizing and transporting those hormones where we need it, if the receptors aren't linking, it's a backlog of stuck stress. You're backlogging it, and now your gut gets kind of inundated. It gets exhausted. Your nervous system gets exhausted. And now, again, if you think of your autonomic nervous system as a monitor for the stress, which is your sympathetic system, your repair, which is parasympathetic, and your enteric, your gut regulator, they're just regulators. Up and down they go. But the problem with stress and repair is if stress keeps outweighing the body's natural ability to repair, you're not getting a restful night's sleep, your digestion is wavering, you start living in the tipped scale. That's where your nervous system goes, oh, this is the balanced place. And now all it takes is like one bad problem, another thing in your life, and boom, you are just in your immune system can go haywire. Like all of a sudden you're diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder at the age of 45. Like how all of a sudden I got this this has been happening. Oh, I have these things from long ago. Okay. You know what you've got is you've got a household that you've never cleaned out the garage. You've never reorganized your closets. You just have so much, excuse my French, but you've got a lot of shit living in your body. No pun intended, like your poop is living inside your body and you're not eliminating. Yeah. And that's a piece of fascia, that fascia helps waste elimination. It helps for cellular transportation. So this is a good analogy for people. If you think of fascia like a sponge, think about it. Yep. If you're waking up in the morning feeling as stiff as a dried out sponge left out overnight on your kitchen sink, that's what's happening to your fascia in a metaphorical way. Right. And when a sponge is hydrated, you can compress it, pull tension on it, squeeze it, move it around, and it yields to pressure. And then when you let it go, boom, it goes right back to its original shape. Right. And a moist sponge absorbs water very quickly. Yes. A dried out sponge, you put pressure or tension on it, it doesn't yield to the movement, it feels stiff. And a dried out sponge does not pull water into the nooks and crannies as fast as a moist one. We all know that. The only way that you can make a sponge useful is to work the fluid back into the sponge. And that's what malt does, is it teaches people how to build back that sensory awareness that's kind of gotten our awareness. Our awareness has decreased. We're not understanding our bodies. We're not listening to the messages. Our body sense is kind of underwater. And so we want to pull fluids back into the sponge. So one of the R's of melt, we have these 4 R's: reconnect, rebalance, rehydrate, release. Rehydrate are tension and compression techniques. And that's what we want to do. We want to learn to work fluid back into the sponge, reignite what we call piezoelectricity of fascia, this ignition through the system, so that the fluids flow more efficiently and the fluid perfusion is more available. And now you can really reverse a lot of the sensations that, again, people just blame on aging. But it's not just aging. It's actually a fascia problem causing an acceleration of your aging process.
Yeah, isn't that interesting how we blame a lot of things on our age? I like to tell my clients it's not necessarily about your age, it's the length of time you've been doing something that's not serving your body. Yeah. You get some kind of a horrible result, not because you're, deficient in a medication or whatever, but because you've been, doing a lot of these things or not doing some things that are, not serving your body. So when I learned about melt, that was quite interesting because, I thought, okay, well, how reactive is this? Like, how would I notice? How would I know? I'm one of those people, right? How would I know? So when I heard you speak, I was like, I need to look this up. So I went to YouTube or whatever, and I was like, I have to do this rebalance thing she was talking about. So I'm like, all right. So I can't even remember what I had. I think I had a rolled up towel or something that I tried with it because I was listening to what you used. I'm like, okay, I don't have one of those foamy rollers. So let me just, invent something, see if this works. So I tried to do as best I could without any instruction and following your little video and stuff. And I did the the assess, and then I did the rebalance, and I did the reassess, and I was like, oh, I do feel something different. What is this witchcraft? Like, what is this magic, this sorcery here? What is going on? And that sort of just drew me in. And then the other thing was, to be honest, I don't do a huge melt every day, but what I do every day faithfully is I melt my hands and feet.
Oh, thank God.
I do every single day. And I started doing it. So I'm a bit of a pianist, but I don't play like I used to play. Like when I was, many years ago, I was 3 hours a night. I was like the Royal Conservatory. I was like the whole nine, right? Doing all these things. I am not at that level, but I like to play once in a while. I like to be able to enjoy what I'm playing, right? Yeah. Well, what I was finding was that when I didn't play for a long time, I'd go to play and like my brain was okay, but the messages were like, it wasn't like they were not responding, and I was very frustrated. So I noticed after I started melting for a while, and I didn't put the two, I wasn't intentionally doing it for that. I just thought, okay, this is something that I should be doing. It's very good. And I will just put this into my day. And I kind of started that. And then I went down to play, and I hadn't played for, I don't know, a couple of months or something. And I went to play, and it was an entirely different experience. The messages were not getting stuck anymore because I had the movement, and the mobility was back again. And I was like, okay.
Well, and also, your hands and feet are sensory portals.
They are, yes.
They really are, right? We actually get more information from our hands and feet than any other body part because we're touching things, we're typing, we're using our phone, we're driving our cars, right? To get from one place to another, ground reaction force needs to be transmitted from our feet up. So people who tend to have neck and low back pain, the very first thing I do is I get them to melt their hands and feet. And even they're like, well, but it's my neck. I'm like, just trust me on this.
Yeah.
Your brain is, if you think of your joints like satellites, you have more satellites per capita in your hands and feet. You got 33 joints in your hands.
Right.
You got one wrist, you got, your elbow, you got your shoulder, right? There's just one, right? So you go from the many to the two to the one, another one to the many, to singles to the many, right? So the most joints are in your hands, your feet, and your spine. Those are the areas that you want to tap into because those are the areas where sensory information, sensory motor information originates from. So just like how you said, it's almost like the sensory reception declines as we age. Yeah. We don't even know that's happening. We don't even know that's happening. But research even shows that if you lose your grip, if your grip strength declines as you age, you're one of the ones that will have a higher tendency towards dementia and Alzheimer's. Just grip. The loss of grip. Fascinating. Same thing. People who get sedentary, it's not from back pain. It's actually foot pain and calf pain that stops people from walking. And again, if we just realize that for all the time we spend trying to make our arms more toned and our butt more lifted in our jeans, we should spend 10 minutes a day on the two most used parts of our body that actually create the neural signaling that stabilizes you. That's why the hand and feet are so powerful. And just like you said, Tanya, you can do the rebalance sequence on a rolled up towel. If you go to YouTube, you will find actually a 7-day do-it-yourself melt treatments, 7 of them that are just with a towel, right?
Perfect.
Because that's it. People are like, she just wants to sell products. I'm like, listen, I didn't even know that I'd have to ever create products. Like I'm a messenger, right? But you need tools. And if you don't have my tools and you've got something else, try it anyway. You might not get the same results.
I did try at first. I didn't have the little ball, and I had a stress ball. I had one of those little spongy, it was a little, like about the size of a golf ball.
Yep.
And so I started doing my hands and feet with that at first.
Great.
Before I even took your course. And then I was like, when I got the tools, I'm like, oh, I see why we should use these. These are better, but it still kind of worked before. Like it was still giving me something,
But you did it right though, Tanya, is you used something that was soft. Yes. And that's a really important message for everybody is that we always, I think that's crazy. Like even in the fitness world, even recovery or restorative things, it's always got to be so hard. It's got to, it's like we're taking, the first thing, oh, you have a shoulder pain. I'm going to take a gun, a Theragun. I mean, stop and think about the message right there. And I'm going to jam my shoulder with it because that's going to what? I ask people, what is it going to do? Well, it's going to relax my muscles. I'm like, is it really? Is that what it's really doing? It's relaxing a muscle. Are you sure that's what it's doing? I mean, just physiologically, right? And half of the people who purport an idea, they don't even know what they're talking about physiology. There's no physiology in fitness. There's no biology or cellular understanding in fitness. So don't believe everything that your trainer says about, jamming yourself. You want to start soft and also indirect. And I think you probably understand that
That
idea.
was the other thing that I had learned from you. Because again, fitness industry, they're not teaching you all the things that go with the health. They're teaching you about exercise harder, eat less calories, and whatever, punish your body kind of thing, right? There was a whole lot of
It's a physique.
it's a
system.
physique business. That's right. And so that's the other thing that I loved learning from you was that it's not direct, it's indirect.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
we take what we call the indirect before direct approach. So I'm just
Yeah.
going to make this very simple for everybody listening to that. So if your neck is killing you, most people, the first thing that they do is they take a blunt object and they jam it right into the areas that hurt them.
Yeah.
And I say to them, think of the areas of your body crying out for help. Like if you had a kid that was playing outside and all of a sudden was screaming bloody murder, running into you, screaming and crying, you wouldn't walk up to them and punch them in the face to make them stop crying, would you? No, no. What would you do? You would actually drop down to get at their eye level. You would hold them and tell them that they were safe. Okay, okay, I got you. Breathe.
Yeah.
Is the next thing you tell them.
Breathe.
Breathe, 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 breathe. Calm down. Calm down. Okay, now tell me what happened. And then you would take information in and then you would take action. When our bodies are screaming out for our help, the very first thing we do is we assault the messenger. We go right to the areas that have pain to see if we can beat it into submission. And I just say this to people. If you were in pain, would you rather somebody hold you and caress you and tell you that everything was going to be okay? Or would you want somebody to assault you? I'm pretty sure we would all pick the hug over the punch, right?
I'm pretty sure.
That's the message of Melt, is that actually as a practitioner, anytime somebody's ever come in to see me that actually has pain in a local region, the first thing I do is I assess their whole global system, the whole net of it. So if you had neck pain, the first thing I would do is I would say, hey, let's stimulate your hands so that the sensory reception through the arms that connects you to your neck and down your spine is open, that your nervous system is actually getting good reception and good information. Because when fascia is in a state of stuck stress, is what I call it, it actually clouds the messages to the brain, and the brain can then respond in this weird way. So there may not be anything wrong. You get x-rays, MRIs, all this stuff, and they'll say it's in your head. And I'm like, no, it's probably in your fascia. It's probably not in your head, it's in your fascia. It might be in your mind, but it's not in your head. It's in your fascia. So if you take the indirect before direct, if you realize that the spaces of the body tend to get compressed, that the masses tend to get displaced, that if you hydrate the tissue, it can help reorganize the organism, our whole body's architecture, our whole body signaling. Start there. And then slowly work toward the areas that hurt. And probably by the time you get to the source, the pain's already less anyway. And that's the message that we give to people when we devise protocols and melt maps or sequential melt treatments. We start indirect, and slowly over the course of weeks, we get a little bit more focused and end more local. But we go global before local.
Yeah. And so I think that's a really great message for people who have had those diagnoses or those comments about, well, it's in your head, or it's not showing anything on the scan, or it's not, we don't see anything in your x-ray. You are fine.
That's what they said to me. When my foot hurt me and it had lasted almost 2 years, I had CT scans, I had an MRI. I mean, I went down like a weird rabbit hole because it wasn't just in my foot. By the time I really started reaching out for help, my whole body was feeling it. I couldn't walk. I was exhausted. I couldn't sleep at night, but all day I would be fatigued. And I had one doctor tell me that I was depressed and I should take an antidepressant. And I'm like, well, no crap, I'm depressed. I'm a fitness professional. I can't stand on my own 2 feet. You would be depressed too. But I wasn't depressed before this happened, number one.
Right.
And I had another doctor say to me, we think because of all of this fatigue, you might have lupus, and we want to do some blood tests because we think you have an autoimmune dysregulation. And I'm like, I mean, literally, I was 28 years old, like thinking my entire life was over. This was it. I was going to be in pain forever. And again, that whole notion, when I thought first, well, it started in my foot. And my foot is where I ground myself. And I'm uprooted. I feel like a flower that's uprooted from the earth. And what is plantar fasciitis? What is inflamed fascia? Why is my fascia inflamed? And why is my body not healing the way I thought it should? And it was the inquiry that brought me back home. It put me back into my body. I was in the fitness industry, so it was all about the outward presentation of yourself. I get a lot of people who look really great on the outside, but they are a terrorizing mess on the inside. And
Yeah.
that's the thing to understand, that the only way out of pain is to go in. You got to go into your body to get out of pain.
Yeah. So what did you do specifically to, I know there's a ton of people out there with plantar fasciitis.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's, it's a thing. I don't know. They try and manage it with orthotics and this and that. And so what did you do that helped you with
Yeah.
yours? Yeah.
So first, I think that inquiry made me realize, like, when I really think of plantar fasciitis, most often my clients that have plantar fasciitis, if we just slow down a little bit and we start to look at how they're navigating their life, they're not grounded. And I mean that, like, energetically, emotionally, psychologically, there's something that they are not living the life that is presented to them, or something in their life, their foundation is cracked. And so first, what we need to do is address, again, getting them in their bodies. They tend to be very type A personalities. They're out there running, they're out there go, go, go all the time, but they're really not ever quiet in their bodies. So that's the first piece. So for me, when my foot was in the most amount of pain and I started to investigate what the literature was saying about fascia, the first thing that struck me was how the diaphragm and breath has a huge piece of how systems flow in the body.
Okay.
So I started literally just with mindful meditation practices, so breath work entrainment, slowing my breath for 6 seconds in and 6 seconds out, actually taking the time to just breathe, through my system. The rebalance sequence is what emerged.
Mm-hmm.
So that was that first thing where all of a sudden it was just like, it was like cement had lifted from my body. I felt like I had suddenly come into a different state of myself. And then what I really started to understand was that my body, I had developed such a strong kind of facade of strength. My front line, my back line was so short that my own spirals, the things that really create energy upward, were kind of compressed. So I started working a lot on my thoracic spine, because a lot of people, when you look at their posture, when they have plantar fasciitis, they're very flexed in the upper body. We've lost some of the lift of the sternum,
okay.
some of the width of the shoulders. So for me, I started working on my upper body through extension. I started working on the back line because my hamstrings and calves were just so locked short at that point that I was almost always in a plantar flex, and my toes were always down.
I see.
Even in
Yeah.
a standing posture, you could kind of see the structure wasn't there. So as I started to go again indirect, before I ever worked on my feet, I kind of went from the top down sort of process, working from breath, working on the upper body, then working on the legs. And then I started to incorporate the foot treatment. And over the course of 4 weeks, it was almost like an awakening in my body, because I had been in pain for years at that point, like almost 2 years, where some days it was maybe a little better than others, but I just didn't feel rooted. And when I look back at it, and something that I wrote in my second book, Melt Performance, was what was an aha for me. And this is many years later, after getting myself out of pain. Years later, it had dawned on me after 9/11, when I started working with people who had emotional trauma, it clicked for me, where I thought, I wonder, my father, 1 year before he died, the year to date before he died, was when my foot started to hurt me that summer.
Oh.
And I think what was happening was I had such a link to his energy, his controlling energy, that somewhere my field was recognizing that he was going to depart before he was even diagnosed with lung cancer. 6 months later, lung cancer. Now I'm dealing with family trauma, going through it. Then he dies. My foot was in a rage at that point. I was just in so much pain. And I think a lot of that was an emotional piece that I hadn't really put two and two together, that's why I felt so uprooted from the earth, is that the foundation that my whole existence was built upon was about to check out of that control state. And so suddenly I just remember afterwards thinking, like, wow, ding dong, the witch is dead. Like, I get to rewrite my story. I don't need to be this person that needs to be controlled. I can actually have my voice heard, and I'm not going to be destroyed from it. And then, again, years go on, and that's kind of where the origin of Melt really started.
That's awesome. that you can look back. Isn't that interesting how we can look back at things and our health and then put the pieces kind of start to fall together, right?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
half a lifetime ago now. I mean, I'm 55,
Yeah.
and so I'm talking about when I was in my mid to late 20s, all of this stuff is culminating into this story. And it's true. I think that we can look back on our lives if we do. The message to everybody, though, when you look back on the sorrows of life, on the traumas of life, don't ruminate in there. Just reflect on it.
Yes.
And if your mind is calling you back, it's most likely because there's something right now in the present moment that is reminding you of that. It's a mirror for us to look at and go, oh, no wonder I feel so shitty in this moment. That
Mm.
person is sounding a whole lot like my father right now. And that's
Mm.
triggering me. And so it's actually sending me into the past, not to get stuck there, which is, I think, what happens to a lot of us. We don't even know that we're in this program and we're in this
Mm.
loop. But if all of a sudden you catch it, it's it actually breaks the pattern. And that was to me the pattern interruption for how I was existing through my life. And it was kind of an awakening. And I think that happens to a lot of people when they overcome a pain point, which could last for decades, but then somehow they reemerge as someone, almost someone else, because they've found their true self in a story that kept them someone else.
Right. And then you can find some peace in that too. And healing, obviously, like that you found physical healing. I think it's really a lot of people don't know how much stress can affect their physical pain.
Yeah.
Aside from just, feeling like I'm feeling stressed and I'm tired and I'm grumpy and whatever. But then they have the aches and the pains and it gets worse and worse and worse, and they don't realize that that is probably a lot of the root of what's going on, or at least it's exacerbating it. If it wasn't the original root, it's definitely not serving, right? It's definitely not helping.
Yeah,
Um,
if you keep getting those signals, again, it is
yeah.
your nervous system kind of going, hello,
Hello. Yeah.
hello, I'm down here. Could you help me out?
Could you help me?
And again, if we ignore it, which I think is what a lot of people do originally, is like their body sends a message and they, it's like, I'll deal with it later. But that's it, is your body is wanting something of you. And it's sort of, if you think of those things like almost like an infant, if, I've never had babies, but my friends who have had babies, when their baby's crying and they're like, I just don't know what this kid wants. What does
Right.
this child is telling me? I don't know what's wrong with you. That's sometimes how we feel in the body, in our own selves as an adult, is why do I feel this way? If you take it like an infant and you embrace it and you just get quiet, I think that's the first step in reprogramming the trap state, because that's what fascia is. Fascia allows the body to be adaptable. So if we're
Mm,
losing our adaptability, we're losing the control of adaptability. That's what happens when you're in pain, is you can't get out of it. You've lost the control of adaptability.
yeah.
So find your adaptability, find the malleability in your existence, start there, and then build upon the fact that you might be living a very rigid life. People with plantar fasciitis, very rigid.
Interesting. Interesting to know that. So, okay, people, if you're listening, you have plantar fasciitis. Start with your upper body and don't be so rigid. Let's see what we can
Yes.
see what we can accomplish, right? Because I mean, really, what's the worst thing that can happen is that you feel better.
Yes, and I mean,
You
even
know?
people who are rigid sometimes are like, I'm not rigid. And you're like, really? You sound rigid just the way you just replied to me. So,
Yeah.
and that's it. It's like we actually will fight the actual truth. I've had a lot of clients when they say something to me and I hear these words that they don't even realize they're saying. And then I'll say, I'm just going to repeat back to you what I heard. So just because I'm not sure if I heard you right. And then I'll say it back to them. And the exact words out of their mouth are, well, yeah, but no, it's like this. And I'm like, wait a minute. Is it yeah or is it no? Because you said it's yeah, but no. So you agreed, but now you're arguing. And so there it is the internal conflict with the voices in our head. We have like 28,000 conversations in a day, and 27,992 of them are with ourselves. Seriously.
That's a
Right?
lot of head chatter
There's
going
a
on up there.
lot of head chatter.
Oh
We're
my.
never quiet. That's where mindful meditation and even the breathwork techniques are really so valuable. We are never quiet in the mind. And that's called samsara in Buddhist practice. We are living in samsara. We are living in suffering when we cannot quiet the mind.
So
That's
what time of day, I always encourage my clients to do these things in the morning, but what time of day do you say or suggest is best to do this quieting?
It's a good question. I mean, I think it's at any point of the day where you
Okay.
feel like you can do that. But for me, I do start my morning that way. I love my plants. I moved down to Florida a couple of years ago, and I have this beautiful lanai with like 50 different plant lives in there. And I come
Oh,
out every
beautiful.
morning and say, "Hello, everyone. You're blooming for me." And I just allow myself to not get wrapped up in my emails or my phone and think that's the thing when we talk about stress. Life is stress, but
Mm,
if you bring the stress in the second you wake up in the morning, you're here, you're looking to see
yes.
who's wanting you, what you need to do, what's going on today. I think that, and the last thing you do before you go to bed is that you're here with this blue light
Yep.
distorting your ability to decrease cortisol and actually go to sleep. You're actually energizing yourself before you go to bed. If that's how you end the night and that's how you start it, you're actually the cause of your dysfunction, not the world around you. We can blame everybody, my mom, my dad, the brothers, the sisters, your wife, your kids, your dogs. Everybody else is the problem. No, no. Actually, we cause the stress in our lives. Life is stressful.
Yep.
There's no way around it. Life's not supposed to be easy. It's how we react to stress.
Yes.
That's right. That's the game of it, is if I
Yes.
can change myself, because I can't change other people and I can't change the circumstance of the world. Like my mom, she's always going to be my mom. She's always going to drive me bananas, but she drives me less bananas now because
Yeah.
I can have empathy for her and I can have compassion for her in the
Mm,
way that she does it. Instead of going, Mom, why do you don't do it that? You're like, no, I just
yeah.
go, well, Mom, how is that working for you? You're right. I just change myself about the state. And that
Mm,
I think is where we can control again our lives. So wherever in the day you feel like you can get quiet and find some gratitude, get sunlight in your eyes early in the morning. If you are anywhere where you can step on grass or hug a tree or get anywhere near nature, you will always electromagnetically click yourself back into the frequencies, that 40 hertz of the world.
yep.
You'll baseline your body. Um, and then move first thing in the morning. I think that's another
Yeah.
thing. We kind of
Yep.
like just get up and go. And really what it should be is get up slow. Don't get up and go. Get up slow. Take your time, breathe, connect. What is my body asking me of today?
Yep.
You know, is there something going on in my body today that wasn't there yesterday that's asking something of me? And just wait for a minute.
Mm.
Just wait for it. And the next thought will come up. And I think that's the beauty also of mindful meditation, is that when people say, I'm not a good meditator, I think, oh, you have just a monkey mind. That's the belief. The whole
Yeah.
game of easy meditation is breathe,
Hmm.
and then watch your thoughts arise. And you'll start to realize that you will actually drift your mind entirely away from this very simple exercise of inhaling and exhaling. I know this is my inhale. I know that's my exhale. Here comes this thought. As soon as the thought comes into your mind and you realize you're thinking, all you need to do is go, oh, thought, and then come back to breath. And in that, what you're doing is you're creating an interruption. You're calming the stress elements of your body, and
Hmm.
stress is more available to just move through the body instead of getting stuck and trapped inside of you. These are
Yeah.
very, very simple things that anybody can do to
Simple.
instantly change the way you feel right now, because this is where change happens right now. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen yesterday. It happens right now.
And,
That's the first step.
and it's amazing how much better your whole day will go when you start the day like that with intention, slowly working up, as opposed to, I mean, we've all done it, right? If you wake up with an alarm clock and you had a power outage and your alarm doesn't go off, and all of a sudden you wake up and right, and you start the day like it's like you never ever
You're
feel
mad at
like
everybody. These people aren't
yes,
driving fast enough. Why isn't that moving? You people are in my way. I just want
right.
my coffee.
And you just never feel like you catch up the whole day, right? And you're just like
Exactly.
exhausted by the time you're done. It's like, oh my word, I feel like I've been hit by a truck. But and maybe you were only 20 minutes off or something. But it's just
It could
that
be two
whole
minutes off.
could be 2 minutes off. It's just that whole sort of mindset and everything, that whole grounding. I do not sleep with my phone in my room. I leave it in the kitchen.
Me
I
too.
I don't wake up with an alarm clock. When I did have an alarm clock, I put something over it so you weren't seeing the like the number or whatever. Like, And when I get up, I get ready, I go to the washroom, whatever, go and I make a hot chocolate protein shake. I grab my Bible, I grab my journal, I sit, I'm quiet. I still don't look at my phone. Sometimes if it's really dark, I use my phone as my flashlight if I don't want to turn on the light and wake somebody up. But, I don't go into my phone. And I don't even do that until then I leave the house and I go do my workout. And then maybe, if I'm finishing it off with a little walk or something, then maybe I'll check my phone. But
that is like the best recipe for well-being. That's why you look young and youthful and vibrant, is that you are doing what 98% of the world cannot do, is that you don't let the outside world control you.
Yes.
You actually do things that fill your soul, that connect you to your life, that put you out and connect you to your body. And then when it's done, I'm going to let the outside world come in. That's the best filter that can actually save your life. And here's another thing I want to remind people. Every moment of every day, you are in exactly the place that you should be. Even when you say, I woke up and I was late. Well, here's the thing. Maybe had you woken up on time, you'd have gotten in your car and you'd have had a car accident. So maybe that moment is actually saving you, that there's some field is trying to protect you. Maybe you have angels around you that are constantly protecting you that you don't even know exist, because you might be an atheist and say there ain't no angels.
Right.
Well, whatever that field is, maybe it's my karma sparkling itself out to you into the ether that we didn't even know we were sharing. But that moment of you showing up late was actually saved your life. So just always take it with that. We're going to get there when we get there. If I'm late, I'm late. If I piss people off, I piss people off. But I'm safe and I can't make this the worst part of my day. And I'm telling you, just that mindset shift can completely change pain points. It can change relationships. You got to know thyself, love thyself, trust thyself. 100% of the time, that should be your foundation. That's what creates peace. And that's what joy is all about. It starts with joy. It's not happiness first. You have to have joy and then you can have happiness. So be joyful.
I love that. I love that. Oh, thank you so much. That's I think we're going to end on joy, because that's the perfect way. That's the perfect way to finish off. Thank you so much, Sue, for joining me here today. And you just bring joy to all of those who are fortunate enough to listen to you. And I hope that they have taken some of these tips that you have given today, and just to, even if just to apply one, start with one and see what you can do today and tomorrow. I believe we can do 1% better every single day. So just pick one, start today. So thanks so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Hey, thanks again for tuning in to the Fit Woman podcast today. I hope you found some value here. Before you go, just a quick reminder, for any products, supplements, tools, or resources mentioned in today's episode, you can find everything over on my website. Just head on over to fuelignitethrive.com. That's fuelignitethrive.com, and click on the shop favorites. I've linked the exact brands and products that I personally use and recommend to my clients. So it's super simple, no guesswork. The one exception is peptides. So for any questions on the peptides, please email me at Tania@fuelignitethrive.com. That's Tania, Tania at fuelignitethrive.com. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.